Happy, happy, happy Wednesday, everybody. It's here again, and we're back for
We
another
just lay
episode.
we lay our heads on the pillow, and the next thing you know, we're here greeting our beautiful Wednesday. So Hump Week has never been the same since we started this, right?
Absolutely.
Hey,
And I love my Wednesdays. No matter
I
what it is, there's always something to learn, right?
always. And we're leveling ourselves up by coming here and talking and teaching and helping people, guiding them, through this journey called life. It can be hard, it can be easy. Everyone is different, so that's what we're here for, is just to help and enlighten.
But here's the thing is we have to realize, and sometimes it can be hard, but it's not the journey of how hard it is, it's how we really respond to it that counts. Like, I go back in life and I think about some of the things, and it was because sometimes things were a little harder because I didn't respond properly to it. It was how it's almost like as if taking your nails and putting it on a chalkboard, you know
Don't talk about that. That's like my biggest fear is to hear that. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
and then instead of flowing through it, we're pulling back, so we have resistance. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things is the resistance that we put on things.
I think so too. And I'm just going to refer back to myself. There was a point who I was so complacent in who I was and really didn't understand that you can change, you can grow, you can become someone else, because we're always morphing and changing, whether it's new ideas, whether it's new thought processes, whether it's something, physical, something mental. We're in the process, or should be in the process, of change throughout our lives.
But when you said that we're always changing and we're growing, but there was a time in my life where I wasn't changing and I wasn't growing, and I actually changed into a person that I didn't like. Changed because I had actually allowed somebody to take my power from me, and I just morphed down. And it wasn't until many years later that it was like I thought to myself, what did I do to myself? And that's when I took control and changed my life. But so there are ways of changing, but not always are they good.
Very, very true. And when we have our power taken away from us like that, whether we allow it or not, which, looking back at me, I did allow my power to be taken, because I was married and I just wanted to keep peace. I had the house, the kids, and I thought, I'll just ignore this time. I'll just not say anything this time. Well, this time turned into 25 years of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even tell you how many days, I don't know, but that's a long darn time. But then you just kind of function. I don't know if you felt like that. It's, you just start going through the days.
Well, okay, so we're going to get technical with our words, and we're going to say, um, do we really function? You said you're just going to function. In actual fact, you don't really function. You just kind of exist. And that's what
That's
I did,
perfect.
right? And
Yeah.
we always have to be mindful of the words we use, and really be honest with yourselves, because here's the one thing that I do know, that we all, from time to time, we lie to ourselves, and that's the worst lie that we can actually ever have. And I don't know about you, Nicole, but I've done that throughout times in my life where I actually lied to myself. And it took a lot of courage to stand up and say, no, I wasn't happy, or no, I didn't do what I really wanted to do, and why, different reasonings in there. So it's starting to be truthful to yourself.
To yourself, with yourself. And that's interesting that you put it that way, because when I reflect back, it's like I did the same thing. And you wake up and you're on autopilot, really. You're not really, you're, like you said, you're existing, you're not living, but it becomes so commonplace in your daily life. You get up, you do this, you make your breakfast, you take your kids to school, you come back, you do your chores, you feed the dog, whatever it is that you do repetitively every single day. And looking back, I didn't like that person I was becoming or the person I became. And there were times, now that I look back, I didn't really think about it now, but I was pretty angry with her.
Yeah.
I was angry with her for this person who I knew to be very outspoken, very independent, very charismatic. I was fun. I laughed. I loved life. And in each day that would turn into a week, into a month, into a year, I just kind of went inside myself and hid.
I get it.
I hid.
Well, today we're going to, for those that are beginning watching us, we're going to be talking about transforming ourselves, because that's what you and I both did. We had to transform ourselves. So from, you know, being in a point in our lives with ourselves and our relationships or whatever, you could be in a job where you're, and I've been there too, where, maybe you just every single day, you're just doing what you got to do. You're going to work, you drive the same way, nothing changes in your life. You go in at 9, you leave at 5, and all of that happens. And you just live daily life by boom, boom, boom. But there's got to be more to life. And I discovered it, but it wasn't something that I did because, it was something that I had to do. And it was
Mhm.
sometimes things are forced upon us, but yet there are sometimes things that we can do because we just want to be somebody else or do something different. So
Absolutely.
right now, let's start by saying that we can all transform ourselves into being different than where we are today. But it first comes with one thing, and that is being recognizing that you want to change. Can you sit back and just sort of say, are like honestly, are you happy with who you are in your life? Are you happy where you stand right now? Now, there's all different levels of happiness too. We have to look at that. We're being honest here, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's contentment. There's being downright, loving where you're at. There's just making the day go by. And then there's other forms of also higher levels of that. But there's also lower levels of feeling, um, you know, not happy with what you're doing, maybe not even respecting yourself at points and times, because we all sometimes hit those realities of life too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get in such a pattern, a continuous pattern day after day after day. And then when you start thinking about, well, who am I? I don't really recognize this person anymore. But then you start thinking, when you've got your kids and they're in school and you've been married and you've got that routine, you put them first in a sense, because you're thinking, now if I go and start changing the paradigm of what's going on, I'm not just disrupting me, I'm disrupting everybody.
Yeah.
And then chaos occurs, because it's like, who is this person that's, all of a sudden this mom that we know, or this wife that I know, or whatever it is changing. And it's not always good, because you start standing up for yourself, you start speaking your truth. You say, you don't like this, no, I don't want to do that, no, I'm not going to do that. And then all of a sudden, this person who's kind of been this patsy for a while, that just went along with everything to keep peace, is the enemy. you
Woohoo!
know is the enemy.
Oh yeah,
It's
I've
not
been there.
him, it's her, because she's different, she's changed, she's changing.
What
Why are you
happened to her?
doing this?
Right? What
Mhm.
happened to her? Where did she
Yeah,
go?
how dare she leave, how dare she abandon us? And, it really got to a point, with me, it was the divorce was the catalyst, but the transition, when I look back, it's like, I don't recognize her. I don't ever want to know her again. I would not have been friends with her.
Yeah.
I I would have had nothing in common with her,
And that's
of course we can't go back, but I raised my kids and did what I thought was best at the time. But man, I do not know that girl. I do not know her. And I don't want to meet her again. I don't want to ever meet her again, because she was not my essence. She was not my core. She was not living within her soul boundaries. She was cheating herself out of life.
so if you're finding that, you're feeling stuck and you're not feeling that you are who you want to be. Maybe life you feel is sort of passing you by. There's all different times through your life. Maybe the kids have all left and you're now an empty nester. And now you're starting to wonder, okay, now what in my life? You know, Possibly there's times, in relationships we outgrow one another. There's also times in relationships where you don't want to leave the relationship, but sometimes you need to tweak the relationship a little bit too. But there's all different forms that happen within us. And the most important thing is within ourselves is we got to be true to ourselves. We got to understand what we really want in our lives. And if we're looking for changes, it's possible. And this is what I know for sure. I'm now well past in my 50s. I'm now into my 60s. Whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Well, people say, "Oh my gosh, aren't you tired?" Like saying, scared to tell people your age, and it's like, no. I'm proud of how old I am. I'm proud where I am in my life and how much I've made it through, and who I am today, and how vital and high spirited and everything that I am. So, you know what? There's choices in life, and if I wasn't, then I wouldn't be here talking. Period. So, always being grateful for that. But I do know that it was over 10 years ago where my life changed and I had to recreate who I was. And what I found is I had a pattern that I had been through because it wasn't the first time that I had to recreate myself in my life. I had done this a few times throughout my life, whether it was job reasons that I had to reinvent or it was relationship reasons, whatever the reason was, it always came back to the same thing. And so today we're going to discuss about what we do because we offer a program, Nicole and I, and it's called Recognize, Reinvent, and Rise. And all of that, we'll put you through some of the points that we go through. And of course, when we coach it, we really break down into very really down. Dive down really deep. Wow, that was a really big deep deal.
That's a Peter Piper moment. And I can't say that.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Yeah,
And
I'm out.
it was the only thing I could ever do in my young childhood. So it's diving deep is really what matters. But we want to start making you to start thinking. And that's what today is to thinking about yourself. Whether you're in your 50s and 60s, it doesn't mean that life is stopping. It doesn't mean that you can't grow. People are starting, there's more women and men in their 50s and 60s and 70s that are doing more in the world today than ever before. So you can change as much as you want to. So let's dive down a little bit deeper and start to discuss the essence of the 3 R's: recognize, reinvent, and rise. And let's start it. And if you do some of these things, even small bits of things you add into your life or changes you add, within, we do our program within a 3-month period, but you can actually really change your life in besides in a matter of a year without any hesitation. Okay, so let's start by, when we do it, we start with like an audit. We call it, it's a life audit. So the whole idea in the audit is to step back and start really looking at your life. You examine. Now, there's different areas. There's actually 8 areas in the life that we look at. We look at your health, we look at your finances, your personal development, your relationships, your career, your self-care, your home life, and your free time. In all these relationships, but here's the thing, before we even begin, you also need to step back and look where you're standing right now. Because when we're standing in a point where we're not happy, or we're just sort of managing life as it's going by us, we need to understand why we are where we are. So we also look at many things, which is what Nicole really centers on, is the healing. So I really seem to be tongue-tied today. Go through about the healing concept.
Well, for me, you're talking about an external audit. I always talk about an internal audit because that's where everything starts.
But I
for
understand.
me.
Okay, but I'm agreeing with that with a lot of these things.
And one of the things is we, during our journey, like with me, I suppressed so many things. I pushed so many things down that sometimes we don't even realize what is inside of us that's stuck, that's blocking us from either recognizing, understanding, feeling that you do need to move forward, but you don't know why you're stuck. You don't know why you really can't look at yourself in an honest way and figure that out. And one of the things I always tell people, whatever's down there, we've got to get you to the point where you are guided to find it, acknowledge it, understand it, and then release it. Because one of the things I tell people is you can't heal properly if you have that, either that trauma, whatever, if the trauma's words, if it's sexual, if it's just being, battery, anything like that. You can't heal properly or at all if you still have that darkness inside of you that caused that pain or that trauma in the first place. You've got to get rid of it. That's one of the first steps that I took when I started my healing journey.
And it all begins from, we have to step back because most of our life is created from what has affected us as a child, what went on through the years. And I know I'm not trying to say that, yeah, you've been carrying around all this baggage, but remember, if it's somebody that has been yelling at you through your life or something that has pulled, it's going to affect you. And what it does is, if when you don't realize it, you carry it with you. It actually builds up through the years, because what happens is as time goes on, there's something that triggers it, something that somebody else has connected you with, and you've actually been triggered by it, and it affects other things. So it becomes like you're building on from one thing or another. And that's why it's really important that, when we do our 3-step program, we really started at this place, because when we can get rid of that negativity or that thing that's triggering us, it actually releases us and opens us up so that we can learn a lot easier from that.
Yeah, that's true. And everything generally happens at age 7 or below. And for most of us who are reinventing ourselves in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, that's a long time ago. And that is not a current memory in our mind or our brain. So that's when we have to go back and find it, because a lot of people that I know, and I did, we're playing stories from something 50 years ago, and we don't even know what it is. We don't know why we act that way. We don't know why we have that reaction. And to go back and do that deep dive into self will help you to understand, or just open your eyes to, my gosh, I've been doing this all that time, and I'm just now figuring out what that is. And that's when you release it, and that's when you get to move on.
Because once you move on, you're now a very different person because that weight is no longer there pulling you down.
Absolutely. And it can get very, very heavy. Just the people that I've worked with that have gone from not understanding who they are to releasing and opening up new eyes. It's a whole different world for them. It was for me.
Yeah. And I actually have done my own. Um, that's where I started from because, when you go through things that pull you back, whether it's relationships or, whether, somebody has maybe done something through your life that knocks you down, you have to sort of look at it because when you can't get rid of it, like there's nothing worse than leaving a relationship and carrying on that anger and everything because that anger only hurts you inside. So when we talk about of recognizing these things that you've been through, to release all that anger, it's like you are born again. There's just a different light and a different feeling within you when you can get rid of it. So, if there's something, we've talked about this many times about releasing that anger and that fear. And when we allow ourselves to forgive somebody, it's not forgiving them. In fact, it's allowing yourself to be forgiven for what has transpired. When you've done things, we hold it against ourselves. We sit back and we're thinking, how stupid of us. How could I have done that? And you sit there and you knock yourself down. But what good are you doing to you when you're doing all this? And these things can actually create really toxins in your own body. So it's all going to be starting with forgiving yourself. And it's not about the other person, it's you. We all need to live a healthier life. And the first part is to forgive.
Yeah, absolutely. And starting with self so you understand it a little better. You understand why you're doing it. And when you talk about having those negative emotions inside of your body, whether it's anger, guilt, resentment, whatever it is, anything that is on the inside, and this is a universal law, will always manifest on the outside in one way or another. And when you explore the word disease, it's your body is at dis-ease with what's going on inside it. You're going to get sick. I can guarantee you that.
And I've seen it firsthand.
So
So,
have I.
yeah, and it's not a pretty sight. And we need to realize how important we are because when we're holding up all of this, we actually show it in more ways than one. Your face shows it, your body shows it, and what's going on inside unfortunately doesn't show its true self until something really happens. So, where you actually are starting to get sick, and you can get sick from all of this sitting in you because it's festering and eating up at you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, it can cause high blood pressure, it can cause anxiety, or it can cause cancer. I've
Yeah.
seen it with my mother because she died of breast cancer, and all she ever told us is she had divorced my dad. I forgive him. I forgave him. I have forgiven him many years ago. On her deathbed, she said he slept with all my friends. She never forgave him.
Yeah.
She never forgave him, and that stayed with her until the day she died.
And it can form other things of even weight gain and things like that. It pulls you back, it pulls you down. So by recognizing these things, that's how we start, by having you to release them so that it doesn't constantly play at you, because there's nothing worse than you can have is 10 years down the road that you're still thinking of it. If you're thinking of it, then hello, there's your answer right there.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things I like to point out is if someone did something to hurt you, most of the time they know what they're saying and they're doing it to do just that. So if that person didn't care enough about you to not hurt you, why are you carrying that around inside of you and letting that hurt continue? You're keeping that emotion in there of a person who hasn't, you know, if it was a couple years ago, I guarantee you they haven't thought about it in a couple years. They don't care. And you know, forgiveness is strictly for you. It's just for you. And you don't even have to ever talk to that person again. You just let it go, you release that, and then all of a sudden you've got this lighter sense of being. You look in the mirror, and I look at my pictures when I was holding all that in to today. I don't know her. Her eyes were dead. You know, I look 10 years younger than I did 10 years ago when I was holding it in.
Yeah,
It's just, it's truly forgiveness is the catalyst for all healing.
I agree. And when we go back and we go back so that we can recognize what it is, we also do a deep dive into you figuring out, listing out what your virtues are, what are your beliefs in your life, what are your, we look at what are the things now, some people want to start off in life and or change and immerse themselves so they can create a new job or a new, not maybe a job, but maybe go into the entrepreneurial world where they can set up a new business. And there's all sorts of things that are really easy in this respect. And we work with you on that way if that's your goal. But whether your goal is to by changing, by maybe losing 5 or 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever it might be, that's part of reinvention. Many years ago, I know that I had traveled for my job at that point was traveling all the time. And as I lived in planes and out of suitcases, I
Yeah.
found myself yeah, it wasn't so beautiful as everybody thought it was.
No.
But after a couple of number of years, I found myself, all I did was eat, work, and sleep. And I found myself at that point 60 pounds overweight. And I knew I, first of all, did not feel comfortable in my clothes. I was always pulling at myself. And I also knew that I didn't like to look at myself. I'd pass by a mirror and I would never look in the mirror. And it was really hard because I was in ladies' clothing at that time. I was supervising stores. And I when walked into my stores and all there was mirrors all around. So it was very hard not looking at yourself. But when I actually ended up leaving, I looked at myself and I was a different person at that point. And I had to go through, at that point I was in my mid 20s, had never exercised. I had really never did much for myself at all. And I had to go through a whole path to lose the weight. And it wasn't an easy path, but it did something to me that really was the start of reinvention. And that was really recognizing of why I was eating, because a lot of my eating was boredom eating. When I wasn't working and I was living in hotels, I was bored. All I did was work. So we also dive down into and finding out what are the things that you're looking to change. Is it your career? Is it part of you? Is it your confidence? When we start to talk to you and start to dive down, you start to investigate yourself. And that's the whole idea of all of this transformation. It's starting to understand yourself, looking at your health. What do you do to make yourself healthier? It's so important that when we move around, especially as we're growing older, it's great to grow older, but it's not good to grow old. There's such a
Yeah,
difference.
that's a great way to put it, right? You can still have the mentality. I still think of myself sometimes as that girl in the 80s which is not always a good thing, but it was fun. But you can keep your mind very, very young by just, there's that little switch there that you can go to or from. You start seeing yourself differently too when you start digging deep and finding what's your essence. Who are you? What did you come here for? When you start investigating the deep depth of your soul, you're going to get some really good answers from that.
So why? What is it that entices you? What makes you bubble all up with excitement? What do you do with your time? Or you doing something where time doesn't stand still? Like all of a sudden you look at your clock or your watch and you go, oh my God, it's an hour already. Oh my, I didn't realize. What do you do at that point where time doesn't stand still, where you lose the track of time? There's something that you do or something that you're involved in or a hobby. There's something that you do that just makes you just feel alive. So that's what we look for. What are the things that just, yeah, your essence, your virtues, your beliefs, all of these things, we dig down deep and we start asking these questions. And then you start writing down because sometimes you don't think about all of these things.
Absolutely. And and I'm going to just say it, at this age, things are a little different because we're back to sometimes just being with us, to where we don't have to get kids to school or we don't have to worry about other things. And we can really look at ourselves as, what did I love when I was, in my 20s? I loved to ski. I always loved to hike. I loved to travel. And I did that, but it was like that was another thing that was just kind of autopilot. There was no real love for that because I had to do it. But now as I'm older and I'm like, there's certain things I want to do and that I've missed doing, and I get to go back to it. You can't go back in the sense of being in that time but you can move forward and still enjoy yourself just as much as you did without the ties that are binding you.
And remember, we all have things that we are good at. So we start writing down all the things that we know that we're good at and skills that we have. Don't forget, these years have gone by, but through these years, you've built up skills. You've built up, you're much wiser than you ever thought was possible. The intelligence, skills, and everything that you've built up through the years, these all have to be captured because when we pull it all together, that's how we create something. But it has to start with what has gone on in the past. So this is part of the recognizing what your gems are. Because you are an incredible being. You don't always see yourself that way, but I believe that we all are. So we start by recognizing all the things about us, and that's how it has to begin. Then we go into the next phase where we start to reinvent, but we need to sort of come together with a vision. What are we envisioning our lives to be? And if it's not that one thing, how do you see your life? Like the ideal life that you would like to live? Because how do we begin it? It all comes with a vision. The telephone that we talk on today was all a vision before it actually ever happened. Same with computers. Nothing just happened out of thin air. Somebody envisioned it and then it came into being. And that's what you need to do. We need to start envisioning, what do you want? So we write out a list of all the things, what type of a relationship that you're looking for, the person that you might want in your life, the dream job or business that you might want to do, the car, the houses, all the rest of it. Start to developing a big picture. It's that big picture that really counts. So the other big thing, what helps us to keep moving forward, is that why. If we don't have a why, we don't have something that's going to get us up in the morning, to get you out of bed. Otherwise, it's like, why bother? So you need to have that reasoning why. So we ask you, what do you want? And we dive down deep. What do you want? And it goes, we can go on for a 10-minute conversation of what do you want? And then the question will be, why? Why do you want that? What is it that you want that? There's got to be something deep down that will help you to keep moving forward. Start tracking all these things.
Yeah, and that there is an exercise that you and I have both done, timing ourselves for 7 minutes. And you can do that alone. You can just time yourself. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And then you go deeper and deeper and deeper.
And
And
don't repeat the same
it
thing.
will change too. It will change from time to time when you do that, because something will come up that maybe you had forgot about that you loved, and it will come to the forefront of memory. And there it is. And all of a sudden you're like, I forgot that person. I forgot what that was like to love that. And I want it back. And that's when you're moving forward with something right.
Absolutely. It what gets you up. It what keeps you going when times are hard, because times always get hard sooner or later, but it keeps you going because that is your why.
That
Then we
is your
talk then we talk about something that people don't realize. It's the mindset. And I know that word has been used way too much because now people go, mindset, mindset. But it's true. When I go on to conversations with people and we talk for a few minutes, I'll say to someone, do you have a positive mindset or a negative mindset? Are you open minded? Do you close minded? Oh, yeah, I'm open minded. Oh, yeah, I'm really positive. Then we'll go on to a few minutes of a conversation and I'll listen to them talk. And then I can hear them, well, they talk this way down. And, before you know it, they're knocking this one down and that one down. And they're talking negative. And I just let them talk and talk. And then later on, I'll say, positive mindset, huh? Because here's the thing, you don't realize the words you're using. This is really important in all facts of life. You should actually record yourself at times as you're talking. And those conversations that you have in your head, talk them out. Talk loud. Talk to yourself when you're in your home alone, or you're with anybody. It doesn't matter. But begin to recognize what you say, the words that you use, because so often people will think of themselves as positive people, but in fact, they're really not. They're not positive in thinking that they're capable of making changes. They're not positive in what they think about themselves. They are the first ones to knock themselves down and never try to build themselves up. And it's really sad. So, this is where we talk about the getting honest with yourself. Getting
And
honest.
a lot of times when people are in that mode of talking like that and not really becoming aware of it, I've noticed one of the things is they'll say, well, I'm being realistic. Well, I'm just observing. This is what I observe. So they're in a mindset that way, thinking that's how they are. And sometimes they're not going to change. They're, even if they talk to themselves, I've seen that so many times, is that, well, that's my reality. That's what I see. That's what I feel. So how would you suggest getting them out of that if they've already got this kind of mental block? Even if they're going to talk to themselves, they're going to continue with that negativity. And I know this because I was married to it for 25 years. I couldn't say anything about how blessed we were, how fortunate we were. Look around. We've got a beach house. We've got a 4,000 square foot house. You drive a Mercedes. Nothing. He told me, says, I'm like the Flintstone car. I have a black cloud over my head. And to this day, he still does, but he's creating his own black cloud from his words and his actions. That's not going to stop him, though. So how would you coach someone to get out of that mindset, that mentality? Because it's so detrimental to everything, to their health, to their happiness.
Change your perspective, but I'm going to be real, okay? Because not everybody is ready for a change, and there are times, Nicole, and we've talked about this before. If somebody approaches me to coach them, and
Mhm.
I always do, a free coaching call, and we talk about it, and I like to give people some tools that they could use. Not, I don't always take people because
Ah, I
if
was going to ask you that. Yeah.
no, because you see, not everybody is willing to change. You have to be open and for criticism, and you also need to be aware. And if you're not aware of how you talk and you don't want to change, you can tell people that want to change or don't, and we're having conversations. I would say in a good 45-minute phone call or a Zoom call that we do, that you can really pretty well see what that person is about or not. And if I make a mistake, then but there's usually a lot there that shows you who a person is. Not everybody is capable of changing. Listen, I
Yeah.
grew up with a mom who was, I understand a lot of things that she had went through, but very negative, and I had to work on myself. I didn't want to become like that because I could see it, I could feel it even as a child, and so it's listening to people's conversations. You can read it. Start with every single morning before you even get out of bed. Recognize how blessed you are. Recognize. Start looking at your gratitude. If you're in a level of gratitude, then you're not going to be in a level of anger. You can't.
Very true.
You can't.
You can't do both. You cannot do both. Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like I've lived a lot of life already, and I've had a lot of knockdowns. And so for me, just to get up every morning and put my feet down on the ground that will hold my body up, for me, it's, like, listen, it was just over a year ago that I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet. So I feel very blessed every morning that I can get out of bed and I can walk with my own 2 feet.
Yeah. And your resilience is amazing also. That desire to become. How do we, a lot of people don't desire to do anything other than just be that person they've been for 60 years because that's all they know. And, if we can just get them to see just a portion of what lies beyond maybe that line of fear or that mindset or that little trap, you know where they've been conditioned, so conditioned from the time they started school to now.
Okay, but here's the thing. How many people can go out today? Like, I know I can. I can be a kid with the flick of a switch. I can be silly. I have fun. I'm a little kid at heart. Like, start doing kid things. Kids don't have all of this shit that's tacked on to them. We get all this extra stuff that's on us as we get older. Go out. Go to you know what I love? I love to go to the beach and still make sandcastles. You know what? When I was in Jamaica in the winter time, I'm there with a friend and no kids around, and you know what? I still got down and build my own little sandcastle because you know what? I love it. It brings me back down to the earth. It makes me actually brings me back to my childhood memories. It makes me just young again. And
Yeah.
I don't feel old. That's the whole thing. I have a lust, a love for life. And I want to go out. I love meeting new people. I love talking to people. I love listening to people talk. And it's all about just getting out there and doing. Become a kid again. Go to a kids movie. I love kids movies. Go to a kids movie. There's so many stuff out there. Like, but they're great because most kids movies are actually written up for adults,
Yeah,
because of the
definitely.
stuff like that. But, the kids can be there. They don't understand really what's being taken. But start to have that gratitude in life. Start to have that desire to be there, to go. And like I was said to you many years ago, when I had to lose the weight, I was feeling like I had so much weight to pull. It was heavy. And as I started losing it, how good I felt. And once I lost my weight, you know what? For over 30 years, I've kept all my weight off, maybe even close to 40.
Ooh,
Not 40
that's
years, 30, 35 years. I've kept my weight off. And it's not the secret to lose the weight. Anyone can really lose weight. And if you're having problems, really contact me, and I'll give you some steps, because it's not that difficult to lose the weight. The difficulty is keeping it off.
keeping it off. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I love the going back to childhood, because I can sit here and you and I, neither of us age. We just don't. And I can remember back when my mom was this age, or even my grandma, they didn't have the mentality that we do now. We're almost anti-agers. I refuse. I refuse to grow up. When I go places with my kids, or I go see my great niece and nephew, I push them on the swing, but I'll get on there with them too.
Me too.
The bubbles. I love to do bubbles with my little niece, or climb in a jungle gym. That's not the prettiest thing ever, but I will do it.
Yeah.
I care not. I care not. But yeah, that's something people need to remember is to just not have those confined thoughts. Have thoughts when we were a child. We didn't care who looked at us. We didn't care what people said. We just did what we wanted to do because we hadn't been conditioned yet. And I'm to the point now, and I learned this from the 4 agreements. Whatever someone says about you, that's about them. That's not about you. If they don't like what you're doing, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a true reflection. When people talk to you in certain manners, they're actually saying who they are, not
Yes.
who you are. And really, we don't need to. So mind shift changes are really important. It's really important to grasp your attitude on life, your fact of what do you really want out of your life. Look at the mystery. Like, I go walk in the park. Go walk in the park and watch the animals, the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees. But besides all of that,
taking it back to the 60s.
put it all in, because it's so amazing when you look at Mother Nature. Like, I'm a dog lover. I love dogs. So I watch these animals, and they know what to do. Like, from the moment they get up, dogs stretch. Dogs do, they do yoga. They do downward
dog came from somewhere.
downward dog. You know what? It's funny, that they know what the body needs. And our body needs to stretch. Our body needs to move. And that's why you want to be young, because you want to still move and go and feel great and look good within your body for you. I really hate when people say, when they got their partner and then they don't need to care about themselves. So many women I had seen through the years have let their bodies go. Once they found that man, then they let their bodies go, and then they become blump. Why?
Yeah.
Do it for
Right.
you. When I
Love
lost
yourself
my weight,
enough.
right.
Love yourself enough to take care of yourself.
So the question is what do you do? What do you do? Remember, we are what we eat. So if you're eating chocolate, and I'm nothing against having a chocolate cookie or a piece of chocolate cake.
Or 3.
No.
I'm giving away 3 cookies today.
Okay. Well, I can't do chocolate, and that's my blessing is
Yeah,
that turned
exactly.
into being a blessing of foods that I can't eat. But here's the thing. You can have everything you want as long as you move your body, as long as it's not the main thing you're eating every day. So
True.
start being mindful. That's the whole thing about life. Being mindful what goes in, be mindful what you're drinking. Right now I'm having coconut water.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's I love coconut water. I used actually when I went on a hiking trip. At the beginning, while I was in the hike, I couldn't do anything. But at the beginning, when we were going through and we were hiking like 7 hour days in the desert, I brought at the initial start of it, I brought coconut water. It gives you so much energy. It's good for your body, and in the energy, it helps you so you can work out longer. Do things that are going to feed your body, not knock your body down.
Exactly. And the thing is if we eat correctly, I can feel it immediately. If I'm eating, and I can't eat processed anymore, I can't eat meat anymore. My body has changed so much in terms of what it won't accept. But the feeling of sitting there eating a plate of vegetables versus, macaroni and cheese out of a box, there's such a huge difference. I can't do it anymore. And I'm really lucky here in South Carolina. I found a place that's primary water. Literally, I go to where it comes right out of the earth. It's
Wow.
amazing. And it tastes very, very different. Very different.
Oh,
And
I'm sure.
so, and if you talk to your water too, you can just tell it what you want it to do with your body, and it has a memory and will do what you want.
It's funny you say that because I can't remember where it is. There's some place in Toronto. I think it was our science center. We have a science center, and they had two plants, and they had and they started this with kids that were in school. So they had two plants that were away from each other, and one plant was caged, and they had speakers going into it. And this one plant, you had to talk nice things to it, and
Hmm.
if you talk, all you could say was nice things, and they gave you scripts that you could use if you didn't know what to say. And then there was the other plant that you had to talk mean to it, and they actually could show the plant as time went on that the plant that everybody talked really well to and was loving and all the rest just blew up. It was green, it was just luscious. The plant that they were talking mean to and everything shriveled up and died.
Yeah,
What do we think when we do for ourselves? When we talk mean things to ourselves, what do you think happens?
exactly. And if you're, and I talked about this last night in a clubhouse room, be kind to yourself first, because if you fill yourself up and you fill, your vessel up to where it's overflowing, that overflow can go into others and help them with that. And that's so true. The words can hurt you, words can harm you, and they'll stay in your field. So be very careful of what you say, especially to yourself. If you want to flourish, if you want to change, if you want to feel good about yourself, you've got to be positive with yourself first before you can really help anybody else.
It's true. So start looking at the part of all of this is that you have to work on yourself daily. You know what? It's just like, we have to take a shower every day. We have to brush our teeth every day. Why can't we talk nice to ourselves every day? Why can't we go out for a walk or do something to move your body every day? That's all it takes is some movement. Now, for those who are not into exercise, then just go for a walk. A 10, 15-minute walk does wonders. It changes everything in your mind, your body, and your soul. Just move your body for 10, 15 minutes, because what ends up happening is once you're out there and doing something, you actually start enjoying it, and it ends up being longer. But it's better to do something than it is to do nothing.
Absolutely.
And let's
Absolutely.
And once we start working with people and we start to figure out what their passion is and what they're really good at, then we start looking at skills. Because, Nicole, you and I are very much alike because we're in the world of entrepreneurship and we've been working and doing all of these things. We've been building our skills along through the years as well.
Absolutely.
And through all this, it has helped us to grow, become a lot smarter, wiser. I know AI is out now. It's the buzzword these days. And
No,
I'm
it's pretty freaking amazing.
right. So, we're keep on growing. I've been learning with AI and using it constantly now, and seeing what it's capable of. And, sky's the limit. I'm
Yeah,
growing. I'm learning. My mind is not stagnant. Do you see what the difference is? When you grow and you
absolutely.
learn, you can take some of these skills, or a lot of them, or most of them, and you can be, and it actually can help you with your bottom line. So through all this, we discover the skills that you need to learn, and the skills that you can still grow and keep doing, if it's not, even if it's not going to do anything for you in the particular field you're in. But you never know, do you? Because one
Yeah.
thing overlaps
And
another.
fear, we don't want fear to keep them from that either, because if we can learn it, Glenda, anybody, or for me anyway, if I can learn it, anybody can. I'm not putting you in that category,
No,
but
no, but it doesn't matter. We're all like that. And I'm glad you brought up that word, the F word. We got to stop that F word. Stop. And
yes,
it deludes us. You know, it's, I use it as friggin' fear. You got to get rid of it, because when, I don't want to say fuck, but anyways, I'm just saying,
you can say it. That's one of my favorite words. So don't mind me.
very descriptive today. It's very important that you've got to, was the worst thing that can happen? And that's what you have to start learning. Everyone's scared. It's like the computer. When we first started the computer, people were scared to press buttons because something would happen. Nothing's going to happen. As long as you're not hitting delete, you're okay. Same thing as here. You know what? Try something. If you fail, then you might have learned something from that failure, and then it's not a wash. So when we get through with it, it's not life and death, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. And and I've been there. I know what you mean by that, because you sit there and you're like so afraid you're going to hit something wrong. And I can remember like calling my niece, and I'm like, she worked at Best Buy, so she like knew everything. I'm like, Lexi, what am I going to do? Da 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 da. Control this, this, blah 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 blah. Back. So there's always a way to get yourself out of that predicament, just like everything else in life. It's just a learning curve. There's really, fear is what we make up in our mind.
And here's the
You
thing,
know,
there is nothing that will change life faster than building new skills. Whatever
true.
the case, you imagine a year where you start out having a limited skill set. By the end of that year, you have built a skill for yourself. And that skill you can always add on to. So constantly look at the skills that you have. Look at something that intrigues you. So I recently, because I felt I recently set up into doing other things, and I'm only doing 100 million things, but that's who I am. But recently I always wanted to do speed reading. And I'm finding that as time is going on, I'm getting more and more emails. I have tons of things that I have to read, documentation and stuff like that. And it's getting to the point where it's overflowing. And so I started to take a course and started to work on speed reading, because I wanted to build my speed up. Just another thing to help me to develop myself more. Look at 64, I'm still taking courses. I'm still learning and I'm developing, but I'm getting smarter. I'm getting better. And I am doing things that my other self would never have dreamed of me doing.
I love learning. Learning is so fun, and it keeps you so young. That those brain synapses are just doing their thing. So yes, learning is so important. The continual learning is so important.
And don't forget even some arts. Okay. So let's see. Like I'm more of an analytical person on my side. I never thought myself as being as artsy or as creative. That's why you have to do the other side. You have to build the other side, the other brain, because that's really important to us. So nowadays one of the biggest thing is come back is coloring. If you're good at doing things, then go and take an art course. I'm just saying to build on both sides of your brain. Start to encourage other movements. If you're not used to doing something that's artsy, then do it. Because this really helps with the other side of the brain. And it's really good to get the other side of the brain going as well.
And the thing is, once you do it, you're going to ask yourself why you hadn't done it before. What was I afraid of? Why didn't I do that? Why did I keep that for myself? You go out, you do it, and you make a difference.
So as we've gone through, let's talk about things that we need to avoid, the activities that we need to avoid and the things. What do we need to avoid? We need to avoid negative impacts in our lives. Now, we can't live in a world where there's no negativity. But when something negative hits, we have to learn to switch it so we can start thinking positive. Oh, this didn't work. Okay, maybe if I tweak it this way, it will work. Somebody says something, if you say, now be careful what you tell everybody too. When you tell people that you're looking to do certain things, you might hear some negative reactions to that too. Because sometimes not everybody wants the best for you. And we got to learn.
I do everything in silence. I do everything in silence.
And it's not difficult.
It's just who I am. I've always been that person that keeps it close to my chest because I want to do it the way I want. And then when I'm ready to reveal, I will. But until then, it's very quiet. And you're absolutely right. People don't always want the best for you.
So learn to be quiet. Those who you see are building you up, those are the people you stay around. The people that make you starting to think twice about yourself, the people who are ready to torpedo you down, those are the people you give less of your time and energy to. It's really important that you see all these things and people for who they are. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be cruel, but you can just politely say, I've got to go now. Can't talk on the phone too much longer. I have another appointment coming up. There's all sorts of nice ways of sort of stepping aside and moving towards what is the best thing for you. So it all starts with dreaming, visualizing, and knowing who you are. That's the greatest thing about life, is we can grow and become who we want to become. It's all up to you. The decision is yours. Dreams are meant to become realities. It's just critical to stay focused and to stay online. And how do you do that? To stay focused on dealing is you find people who have done what you want to do. And those are the people that can lead you to growth, to building who you want to be, because they've already done it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Everything's been done already. It's up to you just to find it and take it on, because we deserve it all, don't we?
We do. We do. And there's no one better than us to make that happen. If you really start to realize how powerful you truly are, Once you step over that fear, once you figure out what you want, then you can become unstoppable. And that's when the fun starts. That's when the magic happens.
And it does. I've seen it. I've been in it. I've watched so many people who have been able to do it all as well. And there's nothing more delightful than watching somebody being able to live their dream. I love it. Nicole, we're coming to the end of today. We've gone a little tiny bit over time, which is yeah.
It goes so fast, Glenda.
So let's what was something that you would like to, a little golden nugget you like to give to people that are watching us?
You know, I think the most important thing to remember just from what we've talked about today is there's no right or no wrong. As long as if it lies within your heart, go find it. It's yours. Own it. No matter what anyone says, those people don't matter. And that's what I had to learn. It's what I wanted to do. And I'm really just now, in all honesty, coming into my truth that I've been speaking. I've kept it very, very quiet for a very long time. And so I know perfectly well what that's like to hold back with the gifts that you've been given. And so I'm starting to speak out, and the more I speak out and you put those words out into the universe, it's only then that they can be captured in, and that helps you make it come true. So speak your truth, go with your heart, go with the gifts you've been given, because they've been given to you for a reason. Use them wisely, use them cautiously, and always use them for the betterment of mankind, and you can't go wrong.
Amen. And for those who've been watching and you would like to get involved in our 3-step program, Recognize, Reinvent, and Rise, we'd be thrilled to have you join us. We are setting forth on this. We are looking to find, at the beginning part, we're doing a beta testing group. So we're looking for 5 people that would like to join in on this group. We'll tell you all details. You can reach out to Nicole or myself and let's talk, because something in you is saying, I want to reinvent or I want to transform. No matter what it is, remember, this is your life and you have the right to live it according to your rules, nobody else's. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. And we hope that you've learned something. And if nothing else, learning that this is your time. Enjoy it while you've got it. Thank you for watching.